all right, okay, okay. Now I was like, oh, you see what we gonna be talking about today? It's gonna be obviously about the Malik Willis thing. I was like, there ain't really nothing else to really phone home about that the Dolphins have done. I think Tutu Atwell might be the only. Everybody else is like a re-sign, or they're not really too much of importance. Tutu Atwell, I was like, I feel like he the name. Everybody done probably heard of him being on the round for all them years, and they being in the playoffs and stuff like that. And he'll make a play here and there. I remember it being a big thing, but about him being like 5'8" and like 175, and he didn't really amount to what you thought he would in a McVay offense. I was like, he has speed. He'll get open every now and then for just some big, but nothing else past that, which is crazy because, like I said, in that offense, you would think that he would get schemed up to be open a lot more, whatever. And yes, Puka and Coop and all the other, they always went receiver hunting to where it's like, okay, he was never going to be involved like that, but still. Anyway, that's just going to be a piece, I guess, for Malik Willis to throw to. He'll probably be like number 3, number 4 receiver or something like that. But so we got him. I was really kind of on the fence about feeling how about him because on one hand I was like, I get it. The Packer got familiar, the Halfley, and then we're basically down south Packers, South Beach Packers or whatever. So I was like, okay, but then also the money comes out, but at the same time, it ain't my money. It ain't like I'm over here. Like the money only really comes a factor if you thought that you could get somebody else or somebody another quarterback or another player at that same price, and that you don't forego that person for Malik Willis, which is not the case here for the Dolphins. So therefore, I don't care. It's not my money in that type of way. Besides, the deal is really just signed up where it's just like it's like a year two where it's like this year he's obviously going to play, but it's like all the money pretty much up front to where it's like cool if we got to get rid of him or you get a quarterback that you like in next year's draft, no biggie, which is fine with me because I'm like cool this year you need a quarterback and we'll see how everything goes. But I was like it's sort of a move. I was like they released Tua and I was sort of already I sort of was like hey bite the bullet this year. Get rid of them for I was like in the whole year and have crazy money next year. There's enough there's enough players that you can find on cheap contracts that at least we'd be signaling that it's like we know we setting up ourselves for. This isn't necessarily like the Dolphins did with Brian Flores and that version of taking. This one is just like you obviously know with the contract what it is, so therefore it's an easier like I said, it's easier to bite the bullet. But I was like, Malik Willis getting him has stirred up, some interesting conversations. To be honest, some people, I was like, some people, I was like, feel hope. I was like, I was like me. I just like I said, I feel like man, it doesn't really move me. I was like, he still got upside, but it's also not somebody that I'm like, ooh, like if we would have got Anthony Richardson, yes, that would have came with a whole bunch of people like, really him? He flamed out, blah blah blah. But but Malik Willis almost did too before he went to the Packer. But if you told me like, oh, 6'5", 240, cannon arm, take a shot, a flyer on him, and if it doesn't work out, whatever, we got next year draft. I'm totally fine with that as well too. But I do also understand that they know Malik Willis, they know how he plays, his work ethic, all that other stuff. And let's be honest, because I was like listening to like Levitar shows and all of them because they're down there in the South and South Florida. And Zaslow, that dude, like a character, he's all over the place. But you had there was no really bringing Tua back this year and figuring it out. I said go ahead and go with Quinn Ewers and just deal with that. But you the stink of McDaniels and Tua and uh I was like Chris, that was the general manager. they had to go. Um, I was like, I was like, they were talking about something silly where they were just like, nobody's felt this type of hope or whatever in like the Dolphins in how many years. I was like, that narrative is always so dumb. Kind of like, we had it like literally 3-4 years ago when Tua was going crazy before the concussions and all that other stuff. Like, like when there's actually a team to be, But Malik himself, and I'm like, cool. I was like, we're gonna see how much is it that he has grown versus also being with the Packers and Matt LaFleur. Because Matt LaFleur, pretty good coach. I like the Packers, pretty good organization. The weapons, I was like, no matter what, they got a receiver for everywhere. They had Dobbs, they had Reed, they had I was like, his name started with not Watt, but they had Watson. I was like, they had another dude, Wilts or something like that. I was like, Romeo Dobbs. They had Golden. I was like, you had Kraft. You had I was like, there was another one, another tight end they had. I was like, Josh Jacobs. You have so many pieces there that that he didn't have to do anything. Like the first, like like the year before he got in, they mainly just ran the ball down people's throat. This year they let him throw, and he looked really good. I was like, I mean, sure, the money that you got to give him, I guess you had to outbid like Arizona or something like that. But I really just feel like, I mean, yes, it's sort of the market for like a little bit of a backup type of starting type of quarterback. But I also feel like they just sort of did it in good faith of just knowing who the guy is and him being, if you want to say a stand up guy or whatever you want to say. I feel like that's what he really got the. I mean, I was like that would help him get the money, which that's just sort of life. I was like things can help you just in that circumstance. I just don't have any feel for it. There's nothing else they could really do to this team. There's really just nothing to wait. I was like, you just waiting for the draft at this point. Maybe they take flyers on some people. Like I said, like you sort of got to be in the bargain bin. But what I did like is somebody talking about getting Malik Willis and the team not being great around him, which I think the team is not as, at least the offensive line. I mean, offense is not as bad as I think as people really talked about. Like I said, at the end of the year, they were really grinding out games. I was like, they got H-Hand. I was like, I sort of like Gordon and Wright at the running back spots. They're gonna have to find some other people outside of now Tutu, but also outside of Waddle in that spot. But I was like, I think you could probably get somebody like that in the draft or whatever later on. Cause I was like, my fear right now, I was like, I think they're gonna draft defense because I think we need defense way more than offense. But it wouldn't surprise me if they went receiver, just to help Malik Willis in all way. But I was like, the line I think is all right. Um, I was like, they showed enough at the end that I was like, the offense I think will be fine. The defense is what the problem is, and that was one of the things I was like that I've heard people bring up is that Malik Willis, unlike the Russell Wilson situation and stuff like that, is that they already had a really good defense. They had Sutton. I was like, while he's not a top five receiver, I was like, he's the number one receiver. I know they were trying to get him away from Aldo a couple of years, but I was like, he just not dynamic. I was like, I was like, I'm pretty sure he had an injury, but he's not as dynamic and special as he was early on. But I was like, he's their number one receiver. That's fine. And Sean Payton is a coach that that is above halfway. I was like, especially for right now. And like you don't know any of the other receivers for the Broncos, but their offense works despite even how sometimes Bo Nix is. So I'm like, we at least got a receiver, even though Waddle gets hurt quite a bit. We have a running back that while they use the hell out of him, I was like, there's still enough. There's still enough there. Now I'm like, you could plug in some stuff, and I think we'll be fine. I was like, but you don't have anything to fall back on because the defense isn't good and the offense isn't good enough to sustain like at least with Cincinnati, the offense can score like crazy to at least be like, yo, defense, just don't screw it up. Our offense ain't even like that. And I don't think Malik Willis is going to come in, and I don't think he's going to like the team on. I mean, like the team on fire, but I also don't think that he's going to spark them up either. I think he is just going to be solid, and it's going to be a whole bunch of how does he play despite the numbers. You're going to have to really watch Malik Willis play and see what's going on and say bump whatever the numbers are. If it's like, oh man, he threw like 25 passes for 113 yards, that sounds like garbage. But if you watch the game, it'd be like, oh, yeah, but I was like, his carries had meaning, or he was getting it to, he was still moving it down the field, or whatever. It's going to have to be like one of those. So it's not going to be anything spectacular. And I was like, he's a quarterback that at least until we see if he's able to pop off the screen or something, that is going to be like Sam Darnold, where it's like coach good, receiver, the offense is humming, everything is going right. But at the same time, this isn't going to be any type of game changer. I'm expecting us to be last in the division still. I think the Jets actually did a whole bunch of moves that I feel like they'll be a lot better than last year. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna get into the Jets talk. That's for a different day. But I was like, the Dolphins. I'm like the offense. Offense, couple pieces here and there. The defense to me is pretty much bare. Despite a couple pieces here and there or whatever, it's still gonna need some balance. Surprised we didn't actually take more Packers uh away from the team, and there's still time. There's still gonna be people that you could probably get on the like almost like how Tennessee. If you was a 49er and you was a Giant, you're on that team. I'm surprised that didn't happen of like the amount of like former Packers that could be tried and had. Uh, but yeah, what I was like, because we gave the money we cut to Tua. I'm like, could we have used that money in other places? Yeah, but how much significant of a player would you really have gotten at this beginning portion of free agency? You still wouldn't have been able to get really any of the top players. I was like, there's nobody I can think of that would have been really worth damn to write home about that. It's like we gave them like we wanted one player, we had multiple players, and I was like, you're just really just gonna have to wait just to see who are the players that's left over, and then start being like, hey, you want to wait till training camp, or you want to get a contract now? I was like, you can show out. At least you can ball. You can show the other team what you're doing if you at least come over here and ball out. That's pretty much how I'm just over here taking it all in. But I was like, I think it's much. I think right now it's really much to do about nothing. It's really just weighing on the draft. Really, to be honest, I was like, Malik Willis is nothing to really get your panties in a bunch about. But also, I was like, don't take your shirt off and swing it like a helicopter. There's no need for any of that. As you could tell, my mood about it is man. Anyway, what do y'all think about the Malik Willis? Are you hyped about him? Not necessarily about. I was like, because it's all you could be hyped about him, even though we all know that we're gonna probably be sorry. Or do you have a lot more hope than I'm over here actually giving you in this video about him? Because like I'm still right here. To be honest, I was like, I would have rather. I was like, you know what? We'll see how the rest of the stuff go. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. Till then, peace out.